Hi, I'm Frankie. You're listening to the Shift to Strong podcast. This episode is called Macros Made Simple. How much protein do I really need? So I wanted to talk about this topic because as a personal trainer, especially for women over 35, I really do bang on about protein because I care so much about your long-term health and goals. So what you really need to know is that reduced skeletal muscle mass and function in adults is highly linked to chronic disease, fractures, frailty, and general poor health as you get older. So it's really important to talk about how much we really need. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I just wanted to give you a bit more clarity on that today. So I'm going to talk firstly about what macros are, why we need to balance them. Then we're going to talk about how I'm going to go through the no scale system for an easy way to balance your macros. Then we will talk about how much protein we really need, especially for women over 35. And hopefully you'll get some takeaways today about how you can balance everything out. So today we're going to talk about what macros are. We're going to define them and why we need to balance them. I'm going to also explain how by using the no scale system to make it easy for you. Then we will talk about some misconceptions about protein, and we'll go deeper into how much protein you really need as a female over 35 years of age. Okay, so hopefully you'll get some good takeaways from today. So firstly, what are macros? So there are three macronutrients. There's protein, fats, and carbs. So protein, what's it for? It's going to be really responsible for a lot of the building in our body. So building different structures that our body needs. Often it's associated purely with muscle, but it's really important for a lot of other body functions, including neurotransmitters such as dopamine, which is going to give us the pleasure signals, and serotonin, which is going to help our mood stability. So really interesting that protein isn't just about muscle. So it has a lot more function than we really think it does originally. Then fats. What are fats important for? They're really going to contribute to your hormone function. Also important for brain health and the nervous system. Okay, so they play a big role. So we need them too. Then your carbs are going to be really for your energy intake. So to get you fast energy. And there's also the fiber element in carbohydrates, which is going to be important for your gut health. So recent studies have talked a lot about the gut as sort of like the second brain. So fiber for gut health is going to be really important for your balance as well. So given everything I've just explained, you can understand why balancing your macros and having some of all of them is going to be really important to your general health and well-being, because they all have a really important role to play. So when you're looking at diets that are going to cut out one of the three macros, of course you know that it can't work in the long term because your body needs all of them. So you might have a different percentage based on what you're working on, what your goals are, that it's recommended. However, you're going to need to keep them all in your diet. Okay. So the general recommendations for the percentage of macros to have. Oh, sorry, I just hit the camera there. So the general recommendations for how much percentage of each of the macronutrients you need. So these are very general. So for protein, it's about 10 to 35%. It's a very large range. For fats, it's going to be between 20 and 35%. Again, a large range. And then carbohydrates is going to be 45 to 65%. So like I say, these are general recommendations. They're quite wide. In between those percentages, there's a lot of leeway. And so it's going to really depend on a lot of different things. So it could be dependent on your age, your gender, intolerances you may have, whether you're sedentary or very active, that will alter your actual needs. So as the podcast is aimed towards women who are over 35, I'm actually going to give you my recommendations for that age group. And bearing in mind that I am looking at active women, so women that are exercising, resistance training, very active, not inactive. If you're inactive, sedentary, and you're not training, then I would have different percentage recommendations for you. So in terms of protein, I would actually recommend 30% of calorie intake comes from protein per day. As we get older, we actually become less efficient in protein synthesis, which means you need to have more to actually get the benefits from it, to be able to use it. So I would be more towards a 30% intake in protein. Fats, I'm going to recommend equally 30%. So fats, especially going through like into perimenopause and menopause, are going to be really important for your hormone function and your brain health, also helping you to absorb key nutrients. So you want to keep the percentage relatively high, which may seem odd because lots of people try to get rid of fats, but healthy fats are really important for your bodily functions, keeping a balance. Carbs, I would recommend about 40%. So this is because generally as we get older, go through perimenopause and menopause, we become less tolerant, so can have more digestive issues. I wouldn't get rid of them completely, but you may actually want to prioritize more calories going into your proteins and your fats than your carbs, but still 40% carbs. If you're really, really active, you may need more carbs because you'll need more of that fast energy. This can also vary depending on what phase of life you're in. So these are, again, general recommendations. Doesn't always work exactly the same for each person. These are general recommendations. So to give you a general idea of what you should be aiming for. Now we know why we're balancing macros. You're going to be like, oh my God, how do I calculate 30% protein, 30% fats, 40% carbohydrates? It's really complicated. I'm just going to give up straight away. So I'm going to try and make it easy for you. I know a lot of you have young kids. You're running around trying to organize meals for everyone. Doing these crazy calculations in your head, it's just not going to be a sustainable way to make sure you're getting your balance. So I'm going to suggest that you use the no scale system if you really want to try. Hi, you're listening to the Shift to Strong podcast by FEB Coaching. My aim is to give women the truth about health and fitness. So in the podcast, I will be using science-backed information and also mixing that with my philosophy and values about training, which I've developed through my personal experience as a personal trainer and training myself. So please bear in mind that science does evolve and opinions do evolve over time. So I'm trying to give you the most up-to-date information and my view at the current time. If you find this content useful, please help spread the word by sharing it with a friend, liking and following the podcast. That would be really, really great. And if you want more information about how to train, please go and look on my website. It's www.feb.com. You also have my Instagram, so it's at feb_coaching. So for more tips and advice, you can find details about the website and Instagram in the podcast description. Thank you, and back to the podcast. Work out if you've got a good balance. So the no scale system is based on a hand. So it's quite simple. I'm going to try and show you. You've got some props here today. So in terms of protein per meal, the no scale system recommends one hand palm size of protein to 2 per meal. Okay, so I've actually brought some stuff with me. So you've got, for example, I've got my fromage frais, petit suisse in French, which are my protein yogurts. That fills my 1 palm in my hands. And I've also got some eggs here. So if I get 2 eggs, I can fit them about in the palm of my hand. It's they're a little bit big, but it works. So that's per meal. So you might be like, oh, 1 to 2 palms, like that feels like a lot. I also checked with tofu earlier and like 1 block of tofu fits in the palm of my hands. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, that's a really good guideline. I don't use that system myself because I find it easy to weigh things. But you can use all sorts of protein sources. So lean protein like chicken, fish. You can have like skyr yogurts. You can use whey protein, different types of meats. And so that just makes it really easy. Lots of people tend to not focus on the protein element. So if you focus on that as the first element of your plates, then you know you're getting your protein source in. Okay. Then coming to fats, so the recommendation is 1 to 2 thumbs, this size of fats per meal. So that could be like your cooking oil, butter, cheese, nuts, avocado, all the kind of things that are going to be healthy fats. So you see it's a much smaller size, but you still need them. Okay, so 1 to 2 thumbs again. When it comes to carbs, you're going to be looking at 1 to 2 cupped hands sizes of carbs. Okay, so yeah, it can be a bigger cup or a smaller cup, but that gives you an idea of how many carbs you need. So when you put that out on your plate, you can see that you're going to have like quite a big amount of protein, a smaller amount of carbs probably, and then you want to be looking at 1 to 2 fists of veg. I find that like a small amount of veg, I tend to have probably more like 3, so it's personal preferences, but that gives you an idea. So really simple system. You can also look it up if you want to have it written down, but an easier way than weighing out all of your food, and you can just check in your plate like, okay, do I have that amount, and adjust as needed. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where you could start if you really want to. If you want to go further, then you can talk to a dietitian or a nutrition coach to have something more specific to your needs. But generally, the system is going to be effective, and you need to make sure whatever system you're using is sustainable and is easy to apply. So not adding you lots of stress on top of your already stressful life. Okay, so a little takeaway for you there today. Okay, so now we're going to go more deeply into the idea of how much protein do I really need. So I've given you an idea, so 1 to 2 palms of protein source per meal. So that's 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. If you want to make sure you're not having too much, that's really a basic to make sure you're having enough. Some people worry about having too much, and there are lots and lots of different recommendations about how much protein you actually really need. So like I said, about 30% of your intake. If you want something to be more specific, then you might look at grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And again, the recommendations are going to be really different depending on your age, gender, lifestyle, what kind of activity you're doing. So like often protein intake is going to be associated with bodybuilders and getting loads of muscle. It's really an important part of your diet. Okay, so the recommendations really vary. Some research says that 0.8 grams to 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight is enough. Some say it should be based on your lean mass and not including your fat mass. Some say 2 grams isn't enough. And so it's really hard to know what exactly you should be having. So in that sense, I want you to just be aware yourself what it feels like if you decide to try and stick to a certain amount of protein per day. If you start to have digestive issues, you're feeling overly full, that kind of thing, that's where you know you're having too much. I tend to find women over 35 do not have enough protein. So lots of things I come across as a personal trainer is women who will say to me, okay, well, I have skipped breakfast, so there's no protein at breakfast. And then at lunch, they may have a protein source. At dinner, maybe not. They might just have some soup. And I'm like, wow, okay, we're looking at about 20 grams protein here. And most people weigh more than 20 grams, unless they're a child. So we really need to work on that. Lots of women are vegetarian. I'm also a vegetarian. So it can be harder to get those protein sources in, and we tend to base our meals generally more around carbs, like it's just the done thing. Things I notice as well with friends and family, they won't really put protein at the center of their meal, and so I tend to find people don't have enough rather than having too much. There's also some myths about too much protein is bad for your kidneys. So this was a myth, I don't know how many years ago that came out, but it's actually wrong, and it's only if you have kidney disease that it would be a problem. Okay, so if you don't have kidney disease, you're not going to ruin your kidneys by having a right amount of protein. You're actually going to support your body and keep it healthy and strong. So some of the common misconceptions are that we can have too much too easily. I really think it's the other way around. If you actually really go for it and try and have the 1 to 2 palms per meal per day, like you're going to realize that that's difficult to get in. Okay, so try already just to get that. I'm going to talk to you about why women over 35 specifically would need more protein. So I've already touched on the fact that we will struggle to synthesize protein as well as when we were younger. So as you get older, you will need a little bit more to be able to reap the benefits from it. So Dr. Stacey Sims, she actually talks a lot about protein intake. She's done lots of studies into it, and she recommends more towards the 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight for women over 35 going through perimenopause and menopause, which seems like a lot, but in terms of the research she's done, that's what's more recommended. The other changes that are going to occur during perimenopause and menopause is the drop in estrogen, and estrogen has a direct impact on your muscle mass. So it's going to mean that you're going to lose muscle mass. So again, really important to keep your protein levels up to reduce the loss of muscle mass. Then you have, of course, sarcopenia, which is as you're getting older. So this starts around 30, but can accelerate around sort of like 40 to 50. It's just like your muscle mass will disappear if you are not resistance training and making sure you're having enough protein. So if you listen to my episode on metabolism, I talked about the importance of muscle mass for metabolism. So if you have not listened, go and listen, and you will understand why I'm so hot on this topic. So really for women over 35, it's not something to put to one side. It's really something to keep as a priority in your life. And you can just adjust the way you think about meals to integrate a little bit more protein. It doesn't have to be a restrictive big change in your diet, and you'll probably feel fuller and more satisfied also with your meals because you're having more of the foods that are going to nourish you in the right way. I wanted to talk about also the quality of the protein sources that you're going to be having. So it's all good and well to be like, yeah, I'm going to have more protein, but actually you need to think about, okay, what kind of sources should I be having? So it's like with anything, what you're going to put into your body is going to have an impact on it. If you're having highly processed sources of protein, then of course it's going to have a more negative impact. Highly processed foods is linked to a lot of different health issues. So with your protein, it costs a little bit more, but it's worth spending that little bit more to make sure you've got a high quality. If you're looking for weight loss, you want to look for lean protein, so chicken breast, tofu, white fish. You can also have eggs. They're a little bit more fat in, but they've got healthy fats. Skyr yogurt, those kind of protein sources where there's not too many carbs, not too much fats in, will be good for you. However, you do need the carbs and the fats, so we don't get rid of them again. So some of the really important things to be aware of when you're looking to up your protein is that because, of course, it's become a trend to have more protein, and the food industry has just clicked onto that one. They obviously put high protein on all the labels of all the food in the supermarkets, and they put the price up so you will buy it. So I actually had a little look into a couple of high protein products just to give you an idea of what the food industry is trying to do, and to make sure you're aware of it. So products that say they're high protein versus products that do not sell a high protein content. However, these ones have more high protein and these ones don't. Outpro Skyr yogurt. So it's a big, big lie. Oh my God. One day I was like, oh, great. Soy Skyr yogurt, like high protein. It's got 5 grams of protein for 100 grams of yogurt. I do not consider that as a high protein source. If you compare that to chicken breasts, you're looking at 30 grams of protein per 100 grams of chicken breasts. So you can see the difference. However, they don't write, as far as I know, high protein on chicken breasts. I hope not. Naked protein bars. I love naked bars. They're great. However, they put high protein on them. Of course, there's lots of protein in because there's nuts often in there, but that means there's lots of fats in there as well. So they're like 7.8 grams of protein per 100 grams, but there's also like 10 grams of fat and 20 grams of carbs almost in those. So from time to time, that's fine, but they should not be your main protein source because it's a bit of a lie. If you compare it to fromage frais, so I have fromage frais in the morning. It's called Petit Suisse here in France, but I know they exist in the UK. They have 9.5 grams of protein per 100 grams. They don't sell themselves as high protein. They're 0% fat. So they're a lean protein source, but they're the cheapest. Like they're cheaper than skyr yogurt, for example. Like skyr yogurt, again, it's like a food industry trend. So that's going to be a lot pricier than if you're going for fromage frais. Other things, like other examples of high protein is like in fish, you're going to have about 18 to 20 grams per 100 grams. So that's higher than our naughty products. And tofu actually has like 15 to 20 grams, so I consider that as relatively good per 100 grams. So the takeaway here is read the nutrients label. If it's telling you high protein, but then you've got all this long list of ingredients in with all sorts of chemicals, you're not really sure what they are, can't pronounce them, then it might be high protein and an on-the-go snack, but it's not your main like key source of protein. You've got to try and think whole foods that are naturally high in protein. It's difficult to get protein on the go. That I do realise. So in the UK, they're actually quite good. They do like a couple of boiled eggs in a little plastic Tupperware thing, not Tupperware, like a little plastic container. So like if I'm in the airport and I'm like, right, how do I get like some protein into my lunch? I'll just go and buy those, and then no one will sit near me, of course, because I'm eating boiled eggs and they smell. But apart from that disadvantage, it's a really easy way to get some protein in. In France, like on-the-go food is all just like sandwiches with loads of like, cheese and very little like lean protein in, so it's difficult. But at the end of the day, like if you're off your macro balance a couple of days of the week because you're on the go, it's not the end of the world. These are just general guidelines. So yeah, if you're on the go, try and find some skyr yogurt, try and find some boiled eggs or something like that, but don't worry too much about it. Just keep the protein sources in your normal routine, and read the ingredients labels, please. One last thing I want to talk about on this episode is whey protein, because we're talking about protein, we have to talk about whey protein, of course. So as a vegetarian who is very active, lots of weight training and lots of cardio training and just general training, I am really aware of my protein intake. So I have about 60 grams of protein intake from foods and about 35 grams from whey protein, and I use native whey protein isolate. So this one is a little bit easier to digest. The fabrication system is more simple. So this is the one I recommend. Also, I recommend going for a natural organic whey protein source. You've got to read the nutrients label again because some whey protein will have quite a low level of protein in it. So the one I have is 84 grams of protein per 100 grams, which means I don't need to have much of it to get a high intake of protein. From anywhere from 75 grams up, I think is okay. And the one I use is green whey, so it's organic. And again, like with the protein snacks, you want to be aware of if there's a very long ingredients list. There's a lot of additives. You can find whey proteins that have zero to no additives, zero or very little additives in them. And those are the ones I recommend, especially if you're taking it daily. So for me, it's really easy because I'm on the go a lot. I often don't have lunch at lunchtime because I'm working over lunchtime. Of course, everyone needs me at that time of day. So I will have a whey protein shake on the go. All I need is my protein powder, a bit of water, and I'll have that like before I go to class at lunchtime, and then I'll have my lunch later on. So it's a really easy way for me to make sure I'm getting enough protein, especially being vegetarian where it's quite hard to get enough protein sources in. And so I do recommend it to a lot of people I work with because most of you are busy mums. You don't have huge amounts of time to prepare all your high protein snacks. and you've already got enough going on. So whey protein is just a simple solution. Also, a lot of people find eating in the morning, like first thing in the morning, is quite difficult. I'm one of those people where I don't really like eating like first thing when I wake up, but I will have a bit of protein shake when I first wake up with my coffee, so that I've got some nutrients coming in. So yeah, you've got to test out the different ways, and the ways. So try mixing them with water first when you first use them. Sometimes people mix them with other things. You can mix them with different milks. You can also make smoothies with them, which work quite well if you don't really like the taste of it. But yeah, test with water to make sure you can digest it well. If you're not digesting your whey protein, then I would recommend you change brand. Try a few different ones to see what works, and go for the most natural organic one you can find, and the least flavorings possible. So some of the benefits I had from changing my diet to integrate whey protein is that I was feeling more full, didn't need to snack as much. I also had a change in my body composition, so I went from so I had less fat mass and more muscle mass gradually, and just feeling like I had lots of energy. So it was a really good transition for me in digestive terms. It worked really well as well. Okay, so the takeaways from today is that any diet that tries to cut out one of your macros, you run away, okay, because it's not going to work. You need the balance, you need everything together, okay? As you get older, you will need to think about having more protein and adjusting your diet, and this will have lots of benefits for you in the long term. Use the no scale system if you want a worry-free option, and be really careful of marketing BS that's going to try and sell you high protein products that are actually not high protein and full of rubbish. We don't like them. Please get in touch if you have any questions. Thank you so much for listening to Shift So Strong again today, and we will be back soon with another episode. Thank you and goodbye.